hear me clearly, your mind is the steering wheel of your destiny. If you cannot control your brain, your life will always be controlled by your emotions, your fears, and your circumstances. Every single thought you allow to live in your head is either pushing you closer to your goals or pulling you deeper into defeat. You are not a victim of your mind. You are its master if you choose to be. Your mind determines your destiny because everything you achieve or fail to achieve begins with the way you think. Your thoughts are seeds, and whatever you consistently plant in your mind will eventually take root and shape your life. If your thoughts are filled with fear, doubt, and limitation, your actions will reflect that, and your life will be a mirror of that negativity. But if you train your mind to focus on possibility, opportunity, and growth, your future will reflect those seeds. The mind is a powerful engine that drives every decision you make, and when you understand this truth, you realize that your destiny is not determined by your circumstances, but by the narrative you choose to believe in your head. When you think about successful people, they all share one thing in common. They decided to believe they could succeed long before the results showed up. They didn't wait for proof to appear before changing their mindset. They believed first, acted on that belief, and their actions created the reality they were aiming for. This principle is universal. What you allow your mind to dwell on creates patterns, and those patterns become habits, and those habits shape your destiny. If you allow negative thinking to dominate your mind, you will unconsciously sabotage your own progress because your mind is always seeking to create a life that aligns with your dominant thoughts. Your brain is constantly recording and replaying the beliefs you have about yourself, and those beliefs are like invisible instructions guiding your behavior. If you see yourself as capable and destined for greatness, your actions will align with that belief even when challenges arise. But if you see yourself as unworthy or incapable, your actions will reflect that, and your potential will be buried beneath fear and hesitation. That is why mastering your thoughts is the foundation for building a future worth living. The moment you choose to change your internal narrative, your external results will eventually follow because your mind is the control tower of your life. Your destiny is not just about what happens to you, but about how you respond to what happens to you. And your responses are dictated by your mental conditioning. When challenges come, a mind that has been trained for victory will see opportunities, solutions, and ways to grow, while a mind that has been programmed with defeat will only see obstacles and reasons to quit. Your perception shapes your reality, and your perception is created by your thoughts. Two people can go through the same situation, but the one with a disciplined and empowered mindset will rise while the other will crumble. The difference is not the circumstances, but the mindset driving the response. Your thoughts also influence the energy you carry, and that energy affects the way people respond to you, the opportunities you attract, and the decisions you make. A mind filled with vision and determination radiates confidence, which opens doors that fear-filled thinking would keep closed. The way you think creates a ripple effect, influencing your relationships, your career, your finances, and your overall success. When you commit to filling your mind with powerful, positive, and faith-driven thoughts, you position yourself to walk into a destiny that matches the greatness inside you. Your mind has the ability to create images of the future, and those images guide your steps, whether you realize it or not. If you consistently visualize failure, your actions will subconsciously lead you there. If you see yourself winning, thriving, and overcoming, your brain will begin to look for ways to make that vision a reality. The pictures you hold in your head are blueprints for your future, And your life will eventually be built according to those blueprints. That is why guarding your mind is essential, because every thought is a seed that has the power to become a harvest in your life. Every decision you make is influenced by the way you think, and over time, those decisions create the path you walk on. A person who has trained their mind to be disciplined and focused will make different choices than someone whose mind is full of distractions and negativity. Those small daily decisions, whether to wake up early, invest in learning, push through discomfort, or stay committed to a goal, are all determined by your mental programming. Your destiny is not built in one day, but is created day by day, choice by choice. And it all starts with the thoughts you choose to dwell on. Your mind also determines how much of your potential you unlock. Many people never reach their full potential, not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they have allowed limiting beliefs to put a ceiling over their life. If you believe that you are only capable of achieving a certain level of success, you will never push beyond that point, even if opportunities are right in front of you. Your mind has to expand before your life can expand. When you enlarge your vision and train your brain to expect more, you will begin to take actions that align with a bigger future, and your destiny will stretch to match your mindset. What you feed your mind daily has a direct effect on your future. If you constantly consume negativity, toxic news, and voices that discourage you, your mind will be filled with fear and hopelessness. But if you feed your brain with wisdom, truth, and inspiration, your thoughts will become a source of strength that guides you forward. This is why being intentional about what you allow into your mind is so important. Your future depends on the quality of your thoughts, and the quality of your thoughts depends on what you consume every single day. Your destiny is shaped not only by your thoughts, but by your ability to control and direct those thoughts with purpose. The power to create a different life lies in your ability to take control of your mind, to reject limiting beliefs, and to replace them with thoughts of courage, faith, and determination. When you understand this principle, you stop waiting for external circumstances to change and realize that real transformation begins in your head. The destiny you desire is waiting for you, but it requires a renewed mind that is aligned with that vision. A mind that refuses to be a prisoner of the past and instead chooses to become the architect of the future. Control your brain, or it will control you, because your mind is always active, constantly generating thoughts, ideas, fears, and possibilities. And if you do not take intentional authority over it, it will lead you in directions you never intended to go. The human brain is powerful, but without guidance, it will default to survival mode, focusing on danger, negativity, and fear, keeping you trapped in cycles of hesitation and procrastination. When you allow your brain to run on autopilot, you surrender control of your future, because your mind will always choose the path of least resistance, even if that path leads to mediocrity. Your brain will not automatically choose growth or discipline. It must be trained, guided, and commanded to focus on your vision. Otherwise, it will become the master while you become the servant to your thoughts. The brain is designed to protect you, but protection and progress are rarely the same thing. It will try to convince you to stay safe, to avoid risks, to remain in comfort zones. And if you do not learn to control it, your life will be dictated by fear instead of faith. Most people never achieve greatness, not because they are incapable, but because they let their brain talk them out of opportunities and convince them that staying small is safer than stepping into the unknown. Without control, your mind will create endless scenarios of failure and disaster, paralyzing you from taking action. You cannot allow your thoughts to lead you into defeat, because an uncontrolled brain becomes a prison that keeps you locked away from your true potential. Every person has an inner dialogue running all day long, and this voice has immense power to shape their life. If you are not conscious of it, that voice will constantly repeat limiting beliefs, past failures, and fears, creating a mental environment where success feels impossible. The brain will always pull evidence from your past to justify why you cannot succeed, why you are not ready, or why you should give up. If you let that voice dominate your decisions, it will steal opportunities and dreams from you before they even have a chance to grow. Controlling your brain means choosing the narrative that runs in your mind, rewriting the story you tell yourself, and refusing to allow negative programming to dictate your future. Your brain is like a wild horse, powerful but unruly. Without discipline, it will run in every direction, leading you away from your goals. But if you train it, if you take authority over it, it becomes the most powerful tool you possess. This control does not come naturally. It requires consistent practice. You have to consciously choose your focus, interrupt negative patterns, and replace harmful thoughts with empowering ones. This is why mental training is so crucial. Your brain will not automatically default to positivity, confidence, and vision. It has to be taught, commanded, and shaped daily. Without this discipline, your brain will continue to sabotage your progress and keep you locked in patterns of self-sabotage. Fear is one of the primary ways an uncontrolled brain keeps people stuck. When fear enters your mind, it spreads quickly, influencing your choices, lowering your confidence, and convincing you that risk is too dangerous. Fear thrives in an undisciplined mind because there is no system to challenge it, no inner voice strong enough to override its lies. But when you take control of your brain, fear no longer dominates. You can acknowledge it, but you do not let it decide your actions. Control gives you the ability to act despite fear, to move forward even when your emotions scream at you to stop. And that is the difference between those who achieve greatness and those who never leave their comfort zone. Your brain is also deeply influenced by repetition, which means the thoughts you allow to dominate will shape your beliefs, and your beliefs will guide your destiny. If you do not control what your brain repeats, it will keep feeding you the same negative thoughts over and over until they feel like truth. Many people fail because they confuse familiar thoughts with truth, never realizing that those thoughts are simply old programming that has been left unchecked. When you take control of your mind, you choose what gets repeated. You choose to affirm success, faith, discipline, and power until those thoughts become your new truth. Without this conscious choice, your brain will continue recycling old fears, failures, and doubts, keeping you trapped in cycles you were meant to break. The environment you live in also influences your brain heavily, which is why control is so essential. If you are not intentional, your brain will absorb negativity from social media, television, and other people, and it will repeat that negativity back to you as if it is your own thought. Without control, your brain becomes a sponge that soaks up toxic information and beliefs, shaping your behavior without your awareness. But when you choose to control your brain, you become selective about what you allow inside. You choose your influences, your focus, and your mental diet, understanding that every thought is shaping your future. This kind of control is not about being rigid, but about being purposeful, because a purposeful mind is a powerful mind. An uncontrolled brain also robs you of time because it thrives on distraction. It will constantly pull your attention to things that don't matter, scrolling through endless content, focusing on problems instead of solutions, and worrying about things you cannot change. When you do not have control, your brain will waste your most valuable resource, your attention. On trivial things, leaving you exhausted but unproductive. Taking control means reclaiming your attention and focusing it on the actions that matter, the habits that create growth, and the thoughts that lead to your vision. Without this control, you will live a reactive life, constantly responding to distractions instead of building the future you desire. Your brain is also an emotional amplifier, meaning whatever you think about most will affect how you feel. If your mind is uncontrolled and constantly focusing on negative scenarios, you will feel anxious, stressed, and unmotivated. This emotional state becomes a trap that prevents you from taking bold steps toward your goals. When you take control of your brain, you gain emotional stability because your thoughts create your emotions, and by directing your thoughts, you can direct your feelings. Emotional mastery starts with mental mastery, and without this foundation, you will always feel like a victim of your emotions. Taking control of your brain is the difference between living by default and living by design. When you do not lead your mind, your life will be a reflection of random thoughts, old programming, and external influences. But when you take control, you become intentional about every step you take. You no longer react to life, you create it. This control is not about suppressing your emotions or ignoring your fears, but about mastering your focus, your attention, and your beliefs so that your life aligns with the vision you were created to fulfill. Repetition creates reality because what you consistently allow to play in your mind eventually becomes your belief system, and your beliefs shape every action you take. The thoughts you repeat to yourself are like seeds planted in fertile soil. Over time, those seeds grow and produce the life you see around you. If you repeatedly tell yourself that you are not capable, that success is out of reach, or that your dreams are impossible, you will unconsciously act in ways that confirm those beliefs. On the other hand, if you continually speak life, courage, and determination into your mind, you will naturally begin to make choices that lead to growth and achievement. The brain does not distinguish between truth and repetition. It simply believes what it hears the most. And this is why repetition is such a powerful tool for transformation. Your daily habits are built on repetition. The actions you take every day, whether big or small, become ingrained patterns that shape your character and results. A person who repeatedly chooses discipline over comfort will eventually see excellence as natural, while someone who repeatedly chooses ease will see mediocrity as normal. Repetition doesn't just affect your thoughts, it conditions your body and mind to act in alignment with what you've been training yourself to believe. Success is rarely the result of one big decision, but rather the accumulation of repeated decisions that become second nature. When you understand this, you stop waiting for change to magically appear and instead focus on what you are repeatedly doing and thinking every day. Your brain is designed to adapt to whatever you focus on, which is why repetition is so powerful. Neuroscience shows that repeated thoughts create stronger neural pathways, making those thoughts automatic. This is why people who constantly dwell on fear and failure find it so difficult to break free from negativity. Their brains have been rewired to default to those thoughts. But the same principle can be used to create success by intentionally repeating thoughts of strength, vision, and success. You can reprogram your brain to see opportunity instead of obstacles. Repetition is not just a motivational principle. It is a scientific truth that your mind becomes what it repeatedly consumes and creates. Your words play a massive role in shaping your reality because every time you speak, you are reinforcing your thoughts. When you say something often enough, it becomes a part of your identity. If you constantly say, "I'm tired," "I'm broke," or "I can't," your mind will find ways to make those statements your reality. But if you repeatedly affirm, I am disciplined, I am capable, I am successful, your actions will begin to align with those words. Repetition creates belief. Belief creates action, and action creates results. Many people fail because they underestimate the power of repeating the right words and the right thoughts daily, not realizing that what they say over and over again becomes the script their life follows. Repetition also determines your emotional state because what you repeatedly think about becomes what you feel. If you spend your days replaying negative experiences or imagining worst case scenarios, your emotions will stay in a constant state of stress and fear. This emotional cycle affects your energy, focus, and productivity, making it nearly impossible to build the life you want. On the other hand, when you make a habit of repeating gratitude, positive affirmations, and empowering beliefs, your emotional state begins to shift and your actions follow. The repetition of positive thinking doesn't just make you feel better temporarily, it rewires your mind to operate from a place of strength and confidence. The environments you choose to be in also influence what is repeated in your life. If you surround yourself with negative people, toxic content, and voices of doubt, those messages will be repeated to your brain over and over again, and soon you'll find yourself believing them. Repetition isn't just about what you say to yourself, it's about what you allow to be said around you. If you want to create a new reality, you must intentionally surround yourself with words, images, and voices that reinforce the future you are building. This is why successful people are careful about their associations. They know that whatever they hear repeatedly will eventually become part of their internal belief system. Every skill you have mastered was built through repetition, whether it's learning to walk, drive, speak a language, or develop a craft. You mastered it by doing it over and over until it became natural. The same principle applies to success and personal growth. You don't become confident by accident. You become confident by repeatedly acting in courage until confidence becomes second nature. You don't become disciplined in one day. You become disciplined by repeating small acts of self-control until they feel automatic. Repetition is the bridge between desire and mastery, and it works in every area of life. The danger of repetition is that it works whether you use it intentionally or not. If you do nothing, your brain will still be repeating thoughts, but those thoughts will likely come from your past experiences, your fears, and your insecurities. Without intention, repetition becomes your enemy, reinforcing every limiting belief you've ever had. That's why you have to take control of what you repeat daily. You have to consciously choose to feed your mind with empowering thoughts and affirmations because repetition has no moral filter. It simply makes permanent whatever you allow to be repeated. Repetition also creates momentum. At first, changing your thoughts and habits feels difficult because your brain is fighting against its old patterns. But as you keep repeating the right actions, your brain begins to accept them as normal, and soon your new behaviors feel natural. What was once difficult becomes automatic, and this is where transformation happens. When you repeat discipline, discipline becomes your default. When you repeat courage, courage becomes your identity. When you repeat focus, distractions lose their power. Repetition is the key to making growth permanent. What you repeatedly think about and focus on creates the blueprint for your life. If you want to change your reality, you must first change what you repeat every single day. Your destiny is shaped by the thoughts you allow to live in your head, the words you speak over yourself, and the actions you take consistently. Every repeated choice, no matter how small, is building a future you will eventually live in. Repetition is not a small thing. It is the silent architect of your destiny, constructing your life one thought, one word, and one action at a time. Discipline is essential for mental mastery because without discipline, your mind will always default to comfort, distraction, and impulsive behavior instead of growth, focus, and intentional living. The brain is naturally wired to seek pleasure and avoid pain, which means it will resist change, challenge, and commitment unless you train it through consistent discipline. Discipline is the tool that transforms your mind from a wandering, reactive state into a powerful, focused engine capable of achieving extraordinary results. It is not about being harsh with yourself, but about building the structure necessary to guide your thoughts and decisions toward your vision instead of allowing emotions or temporary feelings to dictate your life. Discipline creates clarity because when you commit to a set of principles, you no longer waste mental energy deciding what to do in every moment. Your decisions are already made by the standards you live by, which allows your brain to conserve energy and focus on execution rather than hesitation. Without discipline, your mind becomes cluttered with indecision and confusion, leading to wasted time and missed opportunities. A disciplined mind operates with sharpness and direction, moving with intention rather than reacting to whatever feels good in the moment. This mental clarity becomes a competitive advantage in every area of life because very few people are willing to commit to that level of focus. Your brain thrives on repetition and routine, and discipline is what establishes those patterns. When you repeatedly choose to focus, study, practice, or push through resistance, your brain builds stronger neural pathways that make those actions easier over time. Mental mastery is not about being naturally gifted or inherently strong-willed. It is about creating habits that train your brain to operate at a higher level. Without discipline, your mind will always gravitate toward old habits, even if those habits are destructive. Discipline reprograms your thinking by forcing your brain to adjust to a higher standard, and over time, what once felt impossible becomes your new normal. Discipline also builds resilience because a disciplined mind learns how to function under pressure, fatigue, and discomfort. Mental mastery requires the ability to think clearly and make strong decisions, even when life is not ideal. And discipline is the training ground that makes this possible. When you choose discipline over comfort, you teach your brain that it cannot control you with temporary feelings or excuses. This mental toughness becomes a weapon in moments of adversity, because while most people crumble under pressure, a disciplined mind stays calm, strategic, and focused. Discipline gives you the ability to keep moving forward when your emotions scream at you to quit. The mind is like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it becomes. And discipline is the weight you use to build that strength. Just as an athlete cannot get stronger without resistance, your mind cannot become sharp or powerful without the resistance of discipline. This means forcing yourself to focus when distractions call your name, staying committed when motivation fades, and pushing yourself to do what is necessary instead of what is easy. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you are strengthening your mental muscles, making it easier to control your thoughts, emotions, and actions in the future. Discipline is also essential for breaking free from negative cycles and patterns that have been ingrained in your mind over time. Your brain naturally holds on to familiar routines, even if those routines are harmful or unproductive, because familiarity feels safe. Discipline disrupts that cycle by forcing your brain to adapt to new standards and expectations. At first, this feels uncomfortable because your mind is resisting change, but over time, discipline rewires your brain to find comfort in productivity, excellence, and intentional action. Mental mastery is impossible without this process, because you cannot change your life without first changing the way your mind operates. Your emotional state is deeply connected to your level of discipline, because a lack of discipline leads to regret, frustration, and a lack of confidence. When you consistently break promises to yourself, your brain starts to doubt your own word, making it harder to trust yourself to follow through on important goals. Discipline restores that trust, because every time you honor your commitments, you strengthen your belief in your own ability to execute. This internal confidence is a cornerstone of mental mastery, because it gives you the courage to take on bigger challenges and believe in your capacity to overcome them. Discipline is the foundation on which self-trust and self-respect are built. Another reason discipline is crucial for mental mastery is that it allows you to control your focus. In a world filled with distractions, your mind will constantly be pulled in different directions if you are not disciplined. Every notification, every thought, every temptation to procrastinate can derail your progress if you do not train your brain to stay locked in on what truly matters. Discipline acts as a filter, helping you ignore the noise and prioritize the actions that bring you closer to your goals. A disciplined mind does not waste time on trivial things, because it has been trained to focus on what matters most, and this ability is what separates those who achieve greatness from those who drift through life without purpose. Discipline is also what turns knowledge into results, because knowing what to do is not enough. Execution is what creates transformation. Many people read books, attend seminars, and consume motivational content, but never see results because they lack the discipline to apply what they've learned consistently. Mental mastery is not about how much information you have, but about how well you can control your mind to take action, even when you don't feel like it. Discipline bridges the gap between intention and achievement, transforming theory into practice and potential into reality. Without discipline, all your dreams and plans remain nothing more than ideas floating in your head. Finally, discipline creates freedom, because a disciplined mind is not enslaved to emotions, impulses, or external circumstances. When you master discipline, you are no longer at the mercy of your moods or environment. You are in control of your decisions, your focus, and your energy. This level of mental mastery allows you to rise above chaos and stay committed to your vision, no matter what is happening around you. Discipline gives you the ability to design your life instead of simply reacting to it. And this control over your mind is the foundation of every form of success. Action silences doubt, because doubt thrives in stillness, in the moments where you overthink, hesitate, analyze every possibility without moving forward. The longer you sit with fear and uncertainty, the louder they become, whispering reasons why you shouldn't take the next step. Your mind will begin to create endless scenarios of failure, rejection, and embarrassment, magnifying your fears until they paralyze you. But when you take action, even a small step forward, you interrupt that cycle, because movement disrupts fear. Action shifts your focus from what could go wrong to what needs to be done, and in doing so, it quiets the noise in your head that tells you it's impossible. Doubt feeds on inaction, because your brain naturally seeks certainty. And when you delay taking action, you give your mind time to convince itself that the unknown is dangerous. You replay worst case scenarios in your head, imagining everything that could go wrong, and this mental repetition strengthens your fear. But the moment you start moving, the fear begins to lose power, because your brain is now processing reality instead of speculation. Every step you take gives you evidence that you can move forward, that you can figure things out as you go, and this evidence weakens the grip of doubt. Movement is the antidote to overthinking, because progress creates clarity. Action also silences doubt because it builds confidence. Confidence does not come from waiting for the perfect moment or from having all the answers. It is developed through doing, failing, learning, and trying again. When you act despite doubt, you prove to yourself that you are capable of moving forward even in uncertainty. This proof becomes confidence, and confidence silences the voice in your head that tells you that you are not ready or that you cannot succeed. Every action you take plants seeds of belief, and over time, those seeds grow into an unshakable conviction that you are capable of facing whatever comes your way. The brain responds to action by rewiring itself to handle new challenges. When you act, even if you feel fear, your brain begins to adapt, building new neural pathways that make it easier to take action the next time. Doubt is a sign that your brain is trying to protect you from discomfort, but action teaches your mind that discomfort is safe. That growth is not something to fear, but to embrace. The more you act, the less intimidating challenges become, because your brain has learned through experience that you are capable of handling them. Without action, doubt becomes stronger. With action, courage becomes automatic. Taking action also forces your focus outward instead of inward. Doubt grows when your attention is fixated on yourself, on your fears, insecurities, and potential failures. You become trapped in your own head, consumed by what others might think or how you might fall short. But when you act, your focus shifts to the task at hand. You stop obsessing over your own limitations and start paying attention to the solution, the opportunity, or the next step. This outward focus quiets the inner voice of fear because your energy is no longer fueling doubt. It's fueling momentum. Momentum is one of the most powerful ways to silence doubt because once you start moving, it becomes harder to stop. Taking one step leads to another, and before long, your fear has been replaced by a rhythm of action. Momentum doesn't eliminate fear instantly, but it makes it irrelevant because you are too busy building progress to entertain hesitation. The hardest part of overcoming doubt is taking the first step, but once you do, that step creates a sense of accomplishment, and accomplishment breeds confidence, which in turn makes doubt weaker. Momentum becomes your shield, protecting you from being paralyzed by overthinking. Doubt is often a product of perfectionism, the belief that you have to have everything figured out before you begin. This mindset keeps people stuck for years, waiting for the perfect conditions that never come. Action destroys perfectionism because it forces you to start imperfectly. When you take action, you quickly learn that progress matters more than perfection, and that mistakes are not failures, but lessons. Each action you take gives you real-world experience that is far more valuable than overplanning or overthinking. Perfectionism creates doubt. Action creates clarity. Another reason action silences doubt is because it gives you data. When you don't act, everything is theory, and theory often feels scarier than reality. Your mind will exaggerate challenges because it has nothing concrete to work with. But when you take action, you get feedback, and feedback replaces fear with facts. You begin to see what works and what doesn't, and instead of being paralyzed by uncertainty, you gain insight that allows you to adjust and improve. This is how action turns fear into growth. It gives you knowledge that you would never have gained if you stayed stuck in your head. Doubt loses its power when you build a track record of action. Every time you push through fear and take a step forward, you create a mental library of victories. This library becomes a resource your brain uses in moments of hesitation, reminding you that you faced fear before and survived. Over time, acting in the face of doubt becomes a habit, and that habit transforms your identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who hesitates or avoids challenges. You see yourself as someone who acts, who moves forward, who builds momentum regardless of fear. This shift in identity makes doubt weaker because your actions prove who you really are. Action is the language your brain understands best. You can read, plan, visualize, and think all day, but your brain responds to movement. When you act, you communicate to yourself that you are in control, that fear does not make your decisions, and that you trust yourself enough to take the next step even when you don't have all the answers. This constant reinforcement creates mental strength, and mental strength silences doubt faster than motivation ever could. Doubt thrives in inaction, but action builds evidence, and evidence becomes belief. Mental control equals life control, because everything you do, every choice you make, and every action you take begins in your mind. Your thoughts shape your beliefs, and your beliefs shape your behavior. So if your mind is undisciplined, your life will feel chaotic and out of control. The way you respond to challenges, opportunities, and setbacks is determined by how well you've trained your mind to handle pressure, adversity, and uncertainty. A person who has mastered their mind doesn't panic when things don't go as planned, because they understand that their thoughts are the foundation of their reality. When you learn to take authority over your mind, you take authority over your future, because your life will always move in the direction of your dominant thoughts. And if those thoughts are clear, disciplined, and intentional, your life will reflect that clarity and control. Mental control is not about suppressing emotions or pretending challenges don't exist. It is about deciding what you allow to influence your state of mind. If you let your emotions run unchecked, they will lead you to impulsive decisions that sabotage your long-term goals. But when you train yourself to pause, to think, and to respond intentionally, you begin to shift the direction of your life. The mind is like a powerful engine, and if it is fueled with discipline and focus, it can carry you through the storms of life with strength and resilience. Mental control gives you the ability to navigate chaos without losing your sense of purpose. And that level of control is what separates those who succeed consistently from those who are tossed around by circumstances they cannot control. The power of mental control lies in the fact that your mind creates meaning out of every experience you encounter. Two people can go through the same situation and come out with completely different outcomes because of how they choose to interpret the experience. If your mind is untrained, it will default to negativity, fear, and limitation. But if your mind is disciplined, it will seek opportunity, growth, and solutions, even in adversity. This is why mastering your thoughts is the foundation of mastering your life. It determines whether your circumstances control you or whether you use them to build something greater. Life does not happen to you, it happens for you, and mental control is what allows you to see that truth and act on it. Every habit you form begins in your mind, and your habits determine your future. If your mind is cluttered with distractions, your life will be full of wasted time and missed opportunities. If your mind is trained to focus, your life will become a reflection of that focus. Mental control helps you build the discipline needed to replace destructive patterns with productive ones, and over time, those small decisions create massive results. You can't change your life without first changing the way you think, because your thoughts dictate your choices, and your choices create your reality. The level of control you have over your life will always mirror the level of control you have over your mind. A person with mental control understands the importance of guarding their thoughts and protecting their energy. When your mind is under control, you no longer entertain every negative thought that tries to take root in your head. You learn to challenge limiting beliefs, reject fear-based thinking, and focus on what aligns with your goals. This mental filtering process is what gives you power over your emotions and your environment. You start to see that life is not about controlling everything around you, but about controlling what's inside of you. The stronger your mind becomes, the less external chaos has the ability to shake you, because your internal foundation is unshakable. Mental control also creates emotional stability, and emotional stability is one of the greatest advantages you can have in life. When you are emotionally stable, you don't overreact to every situation or let your emotions dictate your decisions. Instead, you use logic, wisdom, and patience to make choices that align with your long-term vision. People who lack mental control often make decisions out of fear or frustration, and those decisions create cycles of struggle. But those who master their mind gain the ability to pause, process, and respond intentionally. And this control leads to a life of balance, confidence, and direction. Emotional mastery begins with mental mastery, and together they create a sense of authority over your life. Mental control is also about clarity, and clarity is power. A mind that is constantly distracted cannot create a meaningful future, but a mind that is focused and intentional has the power to design its own destiny. When you train your mind to focus on what truly matters, you eliminate unnecessary noise, and this focus allows you to execute with precision. People who achieve great things are not necessarily more talented or gifted than others. They simply have the ability to control their mind, stay focused on their goals, and resist the distractions that keep most people stuck. The clearer your mind becomes, the more control you gain over your decisions, your habits, and ultimately your life. The ability to control your mind also determines how well you handle adversity. Life will always bring challenges, but if your mind is not prepared, you will crumble under pressure. Mental control gives you resilience because it teaches you to view adversity as an opportunity for growth instead of a reason to quit. When your mind is under control, fear becomes fuel, failure becomes feedback, and challenges become stepping stones. You no longer see difficulties as setbacks. You see them as part of the process that shapes you into a stronger and more capable version of yourself. This perspective is what gives you power over your life, even in moments when everything seems uncertain. Your relationships, your career, your health, and your finances are all impacted by the level of control you have over your mind. If you cannot control your thoughts, your emotions will spill over into every area of your life, damaging relationships, ruining opportunities, and keeping you stuck in cycles of frustration. But when you master your thoughts, you learn to approach every area of life with strategy and intentionality. You no longer react to life, you create life. You take ownership of your results because you understand that your mind is the source of your actions. And when you control your thoughts, you control your future. Mental control is not something that happens overnight. It is a skill that is built over time through discipline, repetition, and intentional effort. Just like building physical strength requires consistent training, building mental strength requires daily practice. Every time you resist a negative thought, choose discipline over distraction, or focus on your goals despite challenges, you are strengthening your mind. Over time, this mental strength becomes a way of life, and you find yourself calm in chaos, confident in uncertainty, and unstoppable in your pursuit of success. The more control you have over your mind, the more control you have over your destiny, because your mind is the command center of your entire life.